Okay, so non-vested participants, the term non-vested form is submitted via CARS, kind of a way to remember if things need to be submitted via CARS or sent in, submitted electronically somehow or mailed, which most people either fax or upload via the CARS, is if it has to have a signature on it, it has to be submitted where we have the signature. Term non-vested do not, so they are submitted via CARS only. They need to be submitted within 15 days of termination. Participants should complete the Form 2A if the contributions are $200 or more. If you do not give them a 2A, that is fine. I know a lot of, especially like the Sheriff's Department and other personnel, are not anywhere near your office, so you can't give them that. We mail them that. So if we get your non-vested form and we don't have it, get a 2A, Melissa will mail, or Kayla, they will mail the form to the member. Refunds are typically issued 60 to 90 days from the term date. Rest assured they call as soon as they're gone. We get phone calls to see when they will get their refund check. I will tell you that if they call and it's been 90 days and they ask us, if it's because we don't have payroll upload, we have to let them know that's why. So they will call the county. I will tell you, they know that they need to call. Because we have to have all salary and hours posted before we can issue the refund. Obviously, we want to make sure they get all their contributions in their first check so we don't have to redo. Sometimes we know it happens where payroll, or where for some reason vacation doesn't get paid out, or it's found, way later, then we have to issue another one. But we definitely like to get those refunds issued as close to 60 days as possible. And county contributions are refunded back to the county on a quarterly basis. Well, terminations vested, that's the Form 2V. This form should always be printed from our website. It's under retiree pension plan forms, simply because we do update these forms frequently. And if we receive an old version of a form, we'll remind you, typically once or twice, but after that, we'll send it back to get the new, most updated form. This form needs to be printed and submitted via the upload supplemental file link in CARS, fax, or mail within 15 days of termination if they are a future or a deferred retiree. The county should complete the employment information section of the form before giving it to the employee, as this is the last opportunity for the member to review this information for accuracy. I know some counties give the employees a blank form. That's not a good idea. They don't really know, most of them, some do, but most of them don't know their employment history, the begin date, if they were hired part-time and then went to full-time, what their 2 highest years of salary. But that is their only opportunity to review this information and make sure that it's accurate. An employee needs to be vested with 8 years or more of 1,000 hours in each year. And the 2 highest years of salary with documentation need to be provided also. That could be a W-2 or a certified payroll. If there are deductions and you submit either one, we don't know what comes out of that DD box, so we'll have to call if you do not remember. If they have life insurance, AFLAC, uniform allowance, whatever is deducted, that needs to be shown on the W-2 or the certified payroll. It needs to match the salary that you get out of CARS. The initial salary verification needs to be submitted for anyone who did not pay contributions or anyone prior to 2003, even if there are contributions. If you do not submit that with the 2V via CARS, we'll look. If it's not there, we'll submit it. We'll get it to you. We do request that these come back as soon as possible, just because we can't continue with the application process if we don't have that initial salary verification. If someone is retiring immediately, we must also get the Form 2B, which is the designation of beneficiary. That's their opportunity to name a survivor. I highly recommend, especially if someone is married, that you explain to them if they decline this, if you help them with these two forms, they will not have an opportunity to even see their joint and survivor options. Just because they list someone doesn't mean they have to choose that option. It just shows them the joint and survivor options, which means typically their spouse, what they would receive if the employee predeceases their spouse. At least they'll have the opportunity. We do get calls when people pass away, and if they have a single life annuity option, the spouses are typically upset, but we cannot do anything without that spousal information. They have to either decline it or include it. If retiring immediately, too, we need, well, I'll go on. They have to be dated 30 to 90 days prior to the commencement date, not the term date, the commencement date. So if they leave June 5th, they're going to be commencing July 1. So that is also confusing to a lot of the members. They call and think that it's 30 to 90 days. And if they date them too early, we have to resend them, and then it has to be dated again. We do prefer them as close to 90 days as possible, simply because we can get everything reconciled and then back to the county if we need additional information. The participant needs to sign and date page 2 of the Form 2V, and the clerk needs to sign and date for the clerk's representative. If it's a future retiree, we will mail the 2V to the member with the benefit estimate. So if you can't get a hold of that person, don't mail the 2V to them because we will. If it's a future retiree, we take care of that. So don't let that hold you up on submitting the forms to SURF. Also, if you have an HR department that is helping or signing these, contact your benefit specialist, as there's a letter that we need to submit it to SURF that shows that the clerk is allowing the HR department on their behalf to submit this documentation. We have a standard letter that we'll send to you all. We also need things to be dated and signed and stamped with your seal if you have one. The initial salary verification is submitted in cars only. This is completed for any participant terminating vested who was employed prior to January 2003 or did not have contributions. The final salary verification is initiated by the SURF account staff for all terminated vested employees after the final payroll or paycheck is uploaded through cars. That is confusing too. There are 2 salary verifications, and I know the counties get calls that say, oh, do you need anything else? I thought that you always send another salary verification. Well, accounts does, and that's at the very end after their term date. Uh-oh. You know what I did? I don't know. I didn't hit. The designation as survivor form needs to also be signed and dated 30 to 90 days from the commencement date. If you can, we would appreciate if you could give this form and the 2V to the member if they are an immediate retiree, simply because we like these dated the same day. They both need to be signed and dated 30 to 90 days from their commencement date. If they don't know their spouse's Social Security number, or they need to take it home and talk to their spouse, that's fine. When they call us, we'll ask them. And if we get the information from you and this is not included, we'll mail it whenever we mail the benefit estimate. We also need a copy of the driver's license, birth certificate, or state-issued ID for the participant listed above. A passport will also work in that instance, and we also need one for the survivor if they list one. In addition to the 2V and 2B, the retiree must submit a form EFT, which is the direct deposit form. SURF issues payments via direct deposit, and a voided check or deposit slip. The federal Missouri W-4Ps must also be submitted. The federal form is new. It's a little confusing. We did do a small snippet of instructions on the first page, and we send that to the members. Some of you give all the forms to them whenever they're retiring, and that's great. We don't expect that, but if that's how you guys prepare your employees for retirement, we appreciate that. If not, we mail that along with an estimate, and the reason we do that is because whenever we encourage them to take their tax forms to either their accountant or tax preparer, and that way they have an estimated payment so they can kind of gauge their taxes accordingly. These completed forms can be uploaded via CARS if the retiree gives the forms to you. These forms are also located on the CERF website and can be provided when you give them the 2V and 2B, as I stated. If you call in and we email you these, especially if you're a new clerk or new deputy clerk, the benefits staff will mail you the initial forms just so you can see what they look like. But we do ask again that you don't copy those and give them because we update these forms frequently on the website. So I'm just going to go over real quickly a scenario from start to finish. An employee comes into your office and says they're going to retire. Well, if they walk in and they decide that they're going to retire and you are going to help them, you have the opportunity to call us and we can go over everything with you on the phone. If not, if you're comfortable going over it with them, again, provide them the 2V after you've completed the top portion, or you can complete the top portion while they're there, but we ask that you do not have them sign and date a blank 2V form. And then again, if you would give them the 2B at that time, explain that if they decline the beneficiary, they will not have joint survivor options. If they do not have the information for that person, by all means have them take it home. We don't require that you give them the other forms. We know you all have a lot to do. And the tax forms also kind of are more, it helps them better understand them also and their tax preparer if they have the estimate. We do mail the estimate to them once we get that 2V. A lot of employees call us first and tell us that they're retiring. We always ask if they have notified the county that they are leaving county employment. We want them to feel assured that if they have not talked to their supervisor, we will not contact the county and notify you all. That's not our place. And we have a lot of people that are nervous that even if they call for an estimate, we're going to let the county know. We do not ever, everything remains confidential, and we do try to explain that to them. So if you get an email or a call from us letting us know we received information that an employee is leaving, we will have mailed them the 2B and all of the other forms already on our email or our phone conversation with you should let you all know that all you'll need then is the term vested form along with the salary documentation and the initial salary verification if it's needed. So are there any questions on the immediate retiree process? Most of the time, the deferred, well, some, I can't say most of the time, probably at least half the time, you all don't know until they've gone. If you do know, it's great if we get those forms early. It doesn't have to be after the employee retires, and by all means, if you have an opportunity to get a signature on a 2V from somebody that's leaving and they're not going to retire for a long time, it's great if we have that. We have to mail that to them. They cannot commence their pension benefit at age 62 until we get that form signed. And as you know, if they move, which they do, it's kind of hard to find them. We try to ask them to keep demographic information up to date, but we try to call, but we cannot contact them a lot of times. And we only have 90 days from their 62nd birthday to try to find them. And if they don't commence at 62, you guys probably all know this, their pension will not grow. So I always tell members who are not working for the county anymore, and they ask, what if I just wait till I'm 65? You're throwing 3 years of payments in the trash can because it will not grow at all. Their full pension is age 62. So we also have sheriffs a lot of times that call and say, hey, I'm still a sheriff. Can I go ahead and get this? Absolutely. As long as you're not in a CERF eligible position, you can go ahead and commence your CERF pension. And they are not in a CERF eligible position. I have a form So you all know what they look like, but I did bring copies of the 2V and the 2B and the bank form and the big W-4P, that's the federal form, which I hope won't change again for a couple of years, and the Missouri tax form, which hasn't changed in forever. There's also on the website a Form 6. If you read the top of the form, this is for anyone who terminated employment prior to 1/1/2000. You all should never really have to even have this form to give to anybody, because typically those people would call us because they're no longer working for the county. Once in a while, they'll walk in and say, hey, I think I can commence my SERF pension. This is the only time this form will ever be used, and it's a Form 6. A lot of people give them everything they find on the website to fill out, or employees go on and just print everything they can find. But you can also tell those that walk in that we will contact them if we have current phone numbers or addresses 90 days, somewhere around 90 days, prior to their 62nd birthday. If a retiree returns to work in a SERF-eligible position, working 1,000 hours or more, their benefit will be suspended until they terminate for more than 30 days. Hours are counted based on payrolls paid during the calendar year, as reflected on the W-2. If December payroll hours are paid in January, those hours are counted in the year in which the payroll was paid, not the year in which the hours were worked. If somebody works 75 hours in December and they get paid in January for those hours, they're on the next year. They are not in the year in which they work them if they're not paid in that year. A retiree cannot receive a pension payment for the month in which they return to work. It's very important to contact SERF when a retiree is returning to county employment. If they call, we always tell them, if you're going back to work in June and you get your June payment, we're going to take that back, because you cannot work in a month in which you cannot receive a pension payment in a month in which you work. And more, this is happening more and more frequently. We have a lot of them come back. Now, here are some frequently asked questions. These are also included in the Clerk Handbook. And as Kelly stated, there's a lot of information on our website. There's videos, the Clerk Handbook is on there. But by all means, before you get frustrated, if you have questions, call. If your benefit specialist isn't available, somebody else will walk you through whatever you need. We don't want you all to get frustrated and then every time you see SERF paperwork, cringe because you have no idea, especially if you're newer. And we also would be happy to meet with you, whether you come here or we come there. If it's only for the clerk's office or whoever does payroll, or it's easier if you come here because we can go through things better on our system than we can at your office. But we are willing to help any way we can, and we would much rather you feel comfortable doing what you need to do for SERF than being frustrated with us. So when a full-time employee remains in a SERF-eligible position but works less than 1,000 hours, you need to determine if the logger status is going to change as a result of the lower number of hours and adjust their contributions accordingly. Loggers counties are different. Some are 1,000, some are 1,250, some are 1,500, but if their logger status is going to change, then you need to submit that on the change form as non-loggers. Their contributions would then go up to 6%. And what happens if the county has an elected or appointed official working less than 1,000 hours per year? All elected or appointed officials in an eligible position are considered to work at least 1,000 hours per year for the purposes of SERF. Therefore, they should be enrolled in SERF. And you should submit at least 1,000 hours on their payroll reporting. That is important for the match. In order for someone to receive the match, they have to work 1,000 hours. So don't put an hour. I know a couple of counties put an hour a month for some elected officials. Always put the 176 or whatever you put for your full-time employees, because all elected officials are considered to be enrolled in, or considered to be full-time in SERF. Now, we do have a couple of unusual, like the surveyors. They're service credit only. They aren't even on your payroll. So, but if they're on your payroll, then they need to have at least 1,000 hours submitted to SURF with the payroll. What is considered acceptable documentation of county income? Any of the following may be submitted to SURF as documentation of county income. W-2s. If they do not reflect gross wages, a printout from the county payroll must accompany them along with an explanation of the difference. You also can write on the W-2 if it's the whatever box, I think it's DD, and there's a deduction for uniform allowance or whatever. A federal tax return with supporting W-2s, a printout from county payroll records accompanied by the clerk's or clerk's designee certification, and other supporting documentation as approved by the board of directors. I should have mentioned this earlier. Please don't email information that includes social security numbers, names, and all of this. Please do not. And we don't want the employees to do that either. It is out there for everyone to find, especially bank information, anything though. We take off dates of birth on benefit estimates, so it only has their name. We never, ever recommend emailing any of that information. Can I continue to use older versions of forms in order to deplete my supply? Because our forms are generally updated to collect additional information, once a newer version of the form is provided to the clerks and added to our website, we will no longer accept an older version. Why can't I submit forms to SURF via email? Well, we just talked about this. And it is amazing to me how many members will email us EFTs and voided checks, or even tax documents, anything with their name and social security number on it. Do you all have any questions?